Okay, we are live. Hi, everyone. Aliza Ancier here. I'm just going to quickly check the group and just make sure that the video is playing. Let's see here. Okay. Let me see. I don't see it yet. Let me check again.
I can try and pull it up on my end.
There we go. Okay, we have it. Okay, hi everyone. Aliza Ancier here. I'm here with Christina Furnival. Said that right?
Yes, good.
I'm really excited to have her here. Christy's going to be such a great conversation. We're going to talk about social emotional learning in kids, which I think is such an important topic, right? When we become parents, it's not like kids come with a manual, right? We don't always know about this kind of stuff until we might need to, right? Yeah. When our kids start really acting out or something happens. So I think it's a really, really great conversation to have. And I'm really excited to have you here. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Christina Furnival. I'm a mom. I've got 2 kiddos. My daughter just turned 5 the other day, and my son is 3. I am a licensed mental health therapist, and I've been working in the field for over 10 years now. And historically, I've worked with youth and their families. I've done parent education and parent coaching, one-on-one behavior support. And so I have a lot of experience. But then when you become a mom, you realize how little that matters when you're dealing with it in the moment and your own emotions are rising. And in addition to that, I'm a writer and I'm a blogger, and soon to be, coming in September, a published children's book author.
Yeah, that is so exciting. We're definitely going to talk about your book because I'm really looking forward to hearing more about it.
Thank you.
So let's start off just talking basics. What is social emotional learning?
Yeah. So social emotional skills, social emotional learning, those are big terms to, in my opinion, basically describe self-regulation across contexts. Mm-hmm. So the idea is that our thoughts and our feelings and our actions are all interconnected. And by using mindfulness, we can be aware of our own sensations and our own feelings in our body, how we're responding to something, what we're thinking and telling ourselves about it, how it makes us feel emotionally, and then what we do about it. So having mindfulness is a big part of it. And then being intentional when we're choosing our actions based upon those kind of signals from our body. And so the idea with social emotional learning and social emotional skills is that we're helping our children develop the capacity to self-regulate, both inside themselves and process what they're experiencing, as well as connect with other people in other settings and do so appropriately. So I like to think of it as helping to shape our children's experience of the world in which they're in, as well as their interaction with that world. And the kind of basics is getting back down to, what is a feeling? What is it called? What does it look like? So, I'm thinking of my son who's 3, and we're hardcore in social emotional learning on the daily with his tantrums that are off the charts. And it's one of the best ways that you can teach it from the beginning when your kids are super, super little is by sportscasting. And so that is basically narrating what you as the parent are witnessing. Oh my gosh, you're so mad because your sister took your toy. And I can tell you're mad because your jaw tightened and your hands went into fists and you wanted to stomp your feet. And I actually heard you yell too. Those are the signs to me that you're feeling mad. And so kind of narrating objectively and without judgment what you're seeing helps them give your child from a young age the words to put to their own feelings and their own emotions. So that's like one of the most basic and kind of foundational steps that you can take as a parent.
Yeah, wow. There's so much that's coming up just from hearing you say that. I mean, the first thing is I feel like we almost need this as adults, right? Time to learn about our emotions and navigate them. And it's just funny that we're talking about, I mean, it's important for kids. But when you're talking about it, I'm like, yeah, we should have social emotional classes for adults. That should just be a normal thing. As a mom, I think we could all use some more of that.
It is. Well, and especially because one of the other ways we teach it is by modeling. Mm-hmm. And if we're not that good at controlling our own selves and our own self-regulation and emotions, then it's going to be really hard to expect a 3-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 12-year-old to be able to do the same. And part of the idea is that our brain has different centers that do different things. And we have an emotion center, and we have in our prefrontal cortex, that's right here behind your forehead, is where you're able to plan and reason and organize and think things through. And this prefrontal cortex doesn't develop fully until you're 25. And even then, I mean, we all know in the heat of the moment, we say something that we reflect on later that we're like, why did I say that? And it's because we're in our emotional brain state and not our more rational brain state. So with our kids, we can only imagine how much harder it is for them. That part won't be developed till they're 25. Right. But I know even myself, I have a hard time not expecting more of my own kids because they seem so capable in other ways. And I'm like, you should be able to do this. You shouldn't be throwing a tantrum about that. You know, like these are the thoughts in my head. But then it's my own emotional self-regulation that I need to work on in that case as well. And so, yeah, it's definitely the parent and the child. It's like a dance.
Yeah. I love that you said that about modeling. I think it's so important. I've had people ask me, you know, especially around mindfulness, how do we teach that to kids? And of course, there's different techniques, which I'm sure we might talk about some of them even with you. But something that I think is so important that I always say is that kids model what you do. And we can try to throw on them all these different techniques, but if we're not modeling it ourselves, it can be very confusing. It can be hard to be consistent. So I think it's really, really great that you mentioned that.
Yeah.
And then also just going back to what you said before about just one example, the sports casting, which I loved. I think it's such a great example. So I'm just thinking right now, practically, child's having a tantrum. We have a lot of those in our houses too. You know, limbs are flailing, things are flying all over the place. And I've had experiences where I'm trying to sportcast, you know, if that's the word, and say, oh, it looks like you're so angry. And the kid is just all over the place that they're just like, I don't want to hear what you're saying right now. So when you talk about sportcasting, is that something that happens when things are a little bit more quiet? Maybe you're sitting with your child, or even in the moment they're screaming and you're trying to talk over them about what they're experiencing?
I think so much depends on your child's personality. Mm-hmm. With my daughter, I can say, oh my gosh, you're getting really upset. Let's take a deep breath and calm down. And she'll take a deep breath. And then like, while she's still upset, she's allowing me to help her calm. And then we can kind of problem solve together. My son is not down with it. Yeah. He sounds like maybe one of your kiddos where if I'm kind of telling him what I think is happening, even if I'm right, and I can see there's like a recognition, his emotions are too strong that he's like, I don't want what you're doing right now. So with him, he needs more of that connection first. So a lot of times I say nothing and just offer a hug. And then he'll come and he'll cry and I'll let him just talk. He's very, very verbal. I'll just let him kind of get it out. And then instead of kind of sports casting like I might do with my daughter, what I do with him is just reflecting. So this morning, for example, my son is really into characters, and every morning he gets dressed as a superhero of some sort before school, but we're not allowed to wear those to school. So we have to then go through the process of changing into school clothes before we go. And he's not happy about that process because he wants to stay. Today he's Hercules. He wants to stay Hercules. And so he climbed on me, was crying, was stroking my hair because that's a soothing thing for him, is that tactile sensory input. And he was just telling me all about how he doesn't want to go to school and he wants to stay as Hercules forever. And so instead of responding to him, the first thing I did was just literally almost verbatim repeat back to him so that he felt heard. I said, you really want to stay as Hercules. You don't want to go to school because you know that means you need to change out of Hercules. And you know, then it kind of, his bubble just kind of deflated because he felt like, okay, good, I've been heard. You know, I've been listened to. And then from there, then you can employ the kind of two truths situation of you don't want to change because you don't want to go to school or vice versa. And we have to go to school and we have to change. So how can we make this fun for you? And so we did rocket ships with shirt off like a rocket and shirt on like a rocket and, you know, tried to make a game out of it. But so with him, that sports casting, I think actually makes him put up a bit of a wall. So it's important to pay attention to how your child responds and if it's something that works with them or doesn't. Yeah.
You know, it's probably most things in life and with parenting and our own emotions, there aren't necessarily any set rules.
Yes. Well, and I feel like ever since I started working in mental health, one of the ways that I've kind of imagine what parenting is, it's just creative problem solving. It's like you're creative problem solving all day long in every
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so when it comes to social emotional learning, let's talk even with babies. Is that something that we can start fostering? Even, I know you mentioned about when kids in a tantrum, that might be for maybe a kid who's a little bit older. What about even with infants? Is that something we can even start with them?
I think so. And I think the kind of sports casting can apply there as well, or just the explaining the world to them. And it doesn't even have to be social emotional at the beginning, right? It's like, I'm putting your sock on your right foot. I'm putting your sock on your left foot. It's just describing to them what's happening. And then, you know, when they're 9 to 14 months and they're in that separation anxiety age, then, and you're trying to give them to their grandmother or something, you can kind of, you know, they're not throwing a tantrum per se, but they're getting heightened emotionality. And so you can touch on that. Like, I know you're feeling nervous, but grandma's safe. She's going to keep you safe. And I'm right here. And kind of just reinforcing the way that the stimulus that they're receiving from the outside world impacts the way that they feel and impacts the things that they do. And I have initiated the whole deep breathing situation to kind of calm their brain down and calm them down since, 6 months old. Anytime they're upset, we would kind of be like, all right, now we're going to do deep breaths. And, you know, they didn't do it at first, but then they do. Then they do start to do it with you. And then now even my son, when he was sitting in my lap crying about being Hercules this morning, he will initiate those deep breaths on his own without reminders. And it's just like when you're teaching social emotional skills, it's that long game. You start it when they're as young as you can. And then hopefully by the time that they're ready to leave the house and fly the coop, that they will have learned and seen you been modeling this all along as well. And it's so important. You know, studies have linked social emotional skills with academic success, with life success. More so these are considered the soft skills, which I know right now in like business psychology world with Dr. Susan Davis and Brene Brown, everyone's like, soft skills, that name is no bueno. Like, let's change this. Because really it underscores everything you do in all settings, all of your life. So it's a really important thing to do from as early as baby, like infancy.
Yeah. Wow. So always good to know when you have research backing something up. Yeah. And if anyone listening, by the way, has any questions as we go along, you're welcome to put them in the chat box or in the comments, and we'll be able to see them. Absolutely. So I'm curious your thoughts on this, and I don't know if necessarily you'll have a straight up answer to it, but when it comes to tantrums, right, there's different philosophies, parenting philosophies with tantrums. And we're not here to say what's right or wrong. I'm just curious from your point of view, specifically looking at the framework of social emotional skills. If a kid is having a tantrum, you know, some philosophies say be there and connect with them. Some say, you know, don't give them attention during a tantrum. So again, we're not here to say what's right, what's wrong. You know, everyone does what's they feel like is they need to for their family, but more just from the idea of social emotional skills. If a child's having a tantrum, we did talk about this a little bit, our role as a parent, what do you believe our role as a parent is?
I have beliefs and then I know what I do as well, because it's just so hard when you're tired, when you're not sleeping, when you're bogged down by work stresses or pandemic stresses or whatever the case may be. Yeah. It can be hard to employ the skills that you want to use with your kids, or even that align with your values and your methodology for raising your children. So just want to throw that out there, that all of us, myself included, are not perfect, right? But along with that, I want my children to know that they can feel. That feelings are not something to be feared, good, bad, otherwise. You know, some feelings are more uncomfortable, but I want them to know that they can tolerate them. That feelings come and feelings go. And if you allow yourself to feel your feelings, it's more likely to go quicker. So as much as I want to say, I never say stop crying. I do believe that. I do believe you shouldn't tell a child to stop crying, that you should honor how they're feeling, even if you don't understand it. You know, I think if even adults, if I was upset about something and my husband were to tell me like, oh, it's not a big deal, I would feel not heard. And I might feel more upset now because now I'm mad of not feeling heard. Whereas if he were to say, that's really hard, even if he doesn't understand why I'm upset, then I can feel like, oh, it is. And I'm understood by someone. And now I can start to like release this. Right. So for our children, I think it's really, really valuable to validate them, even if you kind of don't get where it's coming from, and not validate necessarily the situation or any of the bigger picture things, but just how they're feeling in that moment, and show them that their feelings aren't things that they need to be afraid of. We use a lot of books. I love using books to teach children, and I used it a lot in therapy. And I think the more we can normalize feelings, all of them, then the less scary they are, and then the more capable we are to process them. So there's one book called The Way I Feel, and I've used that in therapy and with my kids, and it just teaches what emotions are, like what they look like, how they might feel in your body. There's a couple other books that I wrote down that I know that I use and I didn't want to forget. Oh, there's actually, I'm sorry?
I was just going to say, any recommendations you have, you can send me the names to them, and I can post any links in the chat box.
Perfect. That's great. There's 3 actually that are from the publisher that I'm working with about mindfulness, and about one of them particularly is about Some Days I Flip My Lid, and Mindful Me, and Thank You Body, Thank You Heart, and Thank You Mind. So they're wonderful books, and they help explain how we can be aware of our feelings, how we can sit with them, and then how we can let them go. So when our kids are tantruming, we actually have a calming corner, and that's something that I used to use with kids in therapy too, was the idea of gauging where you're at. And so I had an anger gauge when I used to do therapy with children, where we would look at, what does green look like? How do you feel? How are you acting? How are you interacting with others? What does yellow look like? What does orange look like? What does red look like? And how can you recognize when, oh, you're getting to the orange level, let's bring you back to green before we're in red? Because once we're in red, then it's going to take a long time for it to kind of make its way back to green. So Big Life Journal, I don't know if you've heard of that company before. They have journals that are like resiliency mindset journals that are fabulous, but they also have a podcast for kids, and they have all sorts of resources, including these sorts of activities and worksheets where you can help kids kind of gauge where they are. And so we've got a Generation Mindful Calming Corner, and with it has a chart of feelings. And so again, going back to the books, going back to all the different ways you can engage with your children with feelings, is you can review this, not when you need it, not in the moment of the tantrum, but just have it up and talk about it all the time. How are you feeling today when you wake up? Or how are you feeling after lunch or after your nap? When do you think you feel this emotion? When do you think you feel that one? What does it look like when your sister or your mommy has this emotion? And kind of review all of those. And then they also have the coping strategies. So again, we kind of prepare this ahead of time when we talk about like, what makes you feel the best? I know for my daughter, she's got a pillow with my grandmother's face on it, and she goes and hugs it and like talks to her. My son likes to drink some water. They've got different coping skills in general, but also depending on what sort of tantrum or mood or emotions are being elicited. But so we have those up, and they know how to use them because we've talked about it a million times before they've ever had tantrums. And then in the heat of the moment, I sit down with them in that corner and we kind of go through that process. So I don't know exactly if I answered your question. I think I went off on a million tangents, but I think connecting and guiding is the best that we can do if we're in a mental space for ourselves to be able to do that, which we can't always do.
Right. No, I think that really answered my question very clearly. Thank you. So what if we're not in the best mental state, right? Our kid's having a tantrum and it's very triggering for us, or very overwhelmed, or just we're exhausted and hungry, and it's hard for us to deal with it. So what advice would you give to the parent during that time?
It's hard. I think a couple pieces of advice, and one would be, if you make a mistake, if you yell, if you do something that you're not proud of, later when you're calm, own up to it. I think showing our children our humanity and not trying to be these robots that are like absolutely perfect, that's helpful too. Obviously, we don't want to make really big mistakes, but by being human and having a human response to our child's behavior, they see how they affect other people. There's value in that. And then there's value to you coming to them later and saying, you know what, I got really mad and I didn't control my emotions very well.
Mm-hmm.
I should have maybe sat away for a minute and taken some deep breaths, and I didn't. So next time, that's what I'm going to plan to do. Right. So again, it's that modeling, as well as it's reconnecting and kind of resolving. So I think that's one bit of advice. And the other bit of advice is if you're able to employ some of your own coping skills, then do. So maybe it's just pause with a deep breath, give yourself that moment. Recently, mine has actually been the pause with the hand on the head, but there's something in that like stops me, and I'm like, okay. And then I sit here like that. The kids look at me and like, what's about to happen? And then I'm able to kind of regroup in that moment, like, okay, how do I want to handle this? How do I want to approach this? If you can, throughout the day, get a few moments to yourself. I don't know everyone's home life or situation, but if there's a chance that you can actually go to the bathroom by yourself. I know that's not like, we don't want to glamorize bathroom time as self-care, but intentional time away, if that involves taking a break in the bathroom or in your bedroom or outside and getting some fresh air, those are really helpful to kind of give you that little fuel top up or battery recharge to let you get through the next hour or two. Mm-hmm. But I think being on top of self-care is really, really helpful. I know when I'm well rested, when I wake up and I choose to do a meditation and then choose to do a workout, even if my kid's running around me like crazy, which I post about on my Instagram, that can be enough for my own system to be regulated so that I can handle kind of whatever comes my way.
Yeah, such great points. Thank you. Yeah, I think, that idea of self-care is such a huge topic, for sure. I think we could probably talk about that for a long time, but definitely those are such great advice. It is true that I think we tend to not want, or to have this idea that we need to be perfect. And what you said about owning up, and it's okay if we're not perfect. And I besides for the fact that it's good for our own mental and emotional health, I think it's an important lesson for our children as well, that their parents are working on themselves also. And it's good to see that, because then kids might get this idea that they have to be perfect and they can't have emotions. So I think that's a really, really great point.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think there's been a cultural, I don't know, like a pedestal raising of this martyr mom. And I don't into that at all. I don't want that pressure. And I don't want that guilt when I don't succeed, because I'm not going to be perfect, So, and I think being in the mental health field, I did expect more of myself initially as a mom than I think I would have if this wasn't my room. And I've had to go through the process of being like, even with as much as I know, it doesn't mean that I don't feel my own emotions. I'm not responding to them. And we're all having transference and countertransference. And it's hard. We're all it's messy, and it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Very, very good points. Yeah. So just to talk for a minute again about the Calming Corner. If someone would like to start doing that, I know you did mention just a few minutes ago some things about how you use it. How would you recommend someone? I know you said you started from when your kids were young. Maybe someone has toddlers and they haven't done it yet. So how would you recommend that they can start with something like that?
First of all, I have a deal to offer because I'm an affiliate for Generation Mindful. So if you go to my website, thisisreallifemama.com/Generation Mindful, it'll take you straight to their website. And then if you use the code WELCOME with an exclamation mark, it's all capitals with an exclamation mark, you'll get $5 off anything you spend over $20. I'm not sure if that duplicates for more than 20. But so go over there, check out the different resources they have. They have a time in toolkit, and that's what we have on our wall. And I did start very young as far as helping the kids figure out their emotions and label them and figure out what to do with them. But we didn't actually get the Calming Corner until they were toddler years. And so at any time you start is better than never, right? In helping your children with these skills. And so the best you can do is grab their attention with it. It comes with like a start and these characters that represent these different emotions. It can be like a game. Just use information, to talk about, something to play with. Again, talking about all the different emotions when everyone's in a neutral state of calm, when everyone's happy, and kind of explaining, hey, we're going to put this here and this is how we're going to use this. And this is going to be your special spot when you're feeling upset where you can come calm down. And these pictures show you what you could choose to do if you're feeling sad or mad or frustrated. You could choose this one or this one. Which one do you think you would like? And again, just use it like a million times that way before the tantrum that you actually want to try and start to employ it with. So they're going to have tantrums all along the way, but you're going to talk about this when everyone's happy. And then when you decide, okay, starting next week, we're going to start to use our calming corner and kind of prep. And then you can explain, like, I'm going to come sit with you when we do that until you figure out and you feel comfortable doing it on your own. So when your toddler throws their tantrum, oh yeah, okay, so we're upset, scoop them up, I'm going to pick you up, I'm going to take you to the calming corner. And they might resist it. And they might not want to be there right away, but it's that practice. It's that routine. This is where we go. This is what we do. And then you can sit there and say nothing. You could sit there and hug them. I did have, my kids are destroyers of things. I had a basket of all these handy dandy, like magic wands with glitter so they could watch the glitter fall down, and like a hug and a coloring book. And it just immediately got like completely displaced. And we've never put that back together. But if your child isn't a destroyer, that's a good option. Right. But yeah, just kind of going through it with them and guiding them. And I think that's one of our biggest roles as a parent, is like as a coach or a guide, and we present the opportunities. And in this case, for them to learn how to deal with their emotions. Yeah, great. That's so great. Yeah, my kids are destroyers too. So I can, the pictures of the beautiful baskets with the stuff just sitting there, that doesn't really happen. No, I was so hopeful. I trick myself every time.
Right. Yeah. But it's good to know that there's other ways to work around it if that doesn't work, right? Just having the pictures up and talking about it, making a game out of it.
And we framed I think Generation Mindful now has a thicker, almost maybe like foam board poster, because before it was just poster. And my son in particular was trying to rip it off the wall. So we had to, IKEA has some really cheap frames. We got it framed because they're big posters, in order to not let him destroy the corner entirely.
Right. That's so funny. So I'm just looking at the time here. So I really want to hear about your book as well, that you're going to be a published author, which is really exciting. Thank you. I know when we chatted before, you had a little bit of a backstory as to why you were making this book. So I'd love for you to start with that and then to tell us about the book as well.
Absolutely. So, like I said, my daughter's 5, but when she was 3 and going to preschool, she actually had issues with this one friend that seemed to me like they seemed way too young for this sort of stuff that was happening. And I witnessed it where this friend would either be super into my daughter or very cold towards my daughter. And it kind of depended on if my daughter saw her first or not. So when I would drop her off at school, if my daughter was busy putting her backpack on the hook and this friend saw my daughter, this friend would come towards her and be so excited to see her. And I loved that. I'm like, great. Oh, awesome. Her friend's happy to see her today. And then if we got there and my daughter saw her first and called out to her, that friend would like just do one of those. And I'm like, oh my God, they're only 3. What's happening? Oh, wow. So at home, we would talk about it. And I felt really good when that friend didn't want to or wasn't treating her nice. And so, like I said, I love to use books. And so I went online and I looked for books on friendship. And there are lots of them. And a lot of them are really good. But the messages that I wanted for my daughter had to do with boundaries. So how to kind of stand up for yourself and how to draw a line into what sort of behavior you will accept or not. And I really couldn't find a children's picture book on the topic. And so I sat down on my phone and just started to write this rhyming story in the notes app on my phone and would read it to my daughter. And she really liked it and it was helpful for her. And I kept it there for about a year before it ever even occurred to me to do anything about it. I stumbled across it again and in the summer of 2020 and reread it. And I'm like, that's actually pretty good. Like, I still really like that. It wasn't just like in the heat of the moment, me thinking, oh, I'm amazing. And so I looked up some publishers because you can find online. I actually joined a society. So it's the Society of Children Book Writers and Illustrators. And they have the thing called the book, and it tells you what agents and what publishers are open to accepting submissions from unknown authors or authors that don't have agents. And also then you can see what genres they're looking for. So I looked for publishers that are in the social emotional realm, that like to maybe have therapists as authors. And so I submitted to 5 or 6. And the next day I heard back from my publisher, PCES Publishing. And we moved forward and started making a book. So that this book is called A Not So Friendly Friend. And it's a story of how to set boundaries to have healthy friendships. And it is due for release September 14th. So that's just in a handful of months. Wow. And I'm in the contracting phase right now, actually on a second book. So we're making it a whole series called Capable Kiddos. And the second book is called Fear Not. And it's a book about how to helping kids beat fear and anxiety with 3 simple steps. And my hope is that that one will come out in the spring of 2022. And then I have an idea for a third book on self-esteem and your inner voice and how you talk to yourself. And who knows, maybe there will be more, but those are like the 3 that I'm thinking for this series.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Good for you. That's really, really exciting. Please let us know when it comes out because we would love to hear that. And I think I mentioned to you when we spoke that, not that I know every book out there because I definitely don't, but we do read a lot in our house, and I don't really think that there is. And you said also that there is a book about that, about boundaries with friends, that's written in just in general about boundaries. We talk about boundaries as adults, but how important that is with kids also. Sometimes we just tell, just be friends with them, just be nice with them. But I think we need to respect the fact that kids need boundaries also, and they might not feel comfortable with certain people. So I think that's a really, really important thing to talk about.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm excited about it. And actually, you mentioning boundaries again just actually took me back to us speaking about parents being perfect. Is we need to model for our kids boundaries as well. And that includes when I'm not available when they need me, that's okay. It's okay for me to say to my kids, hey, you know what? You guys are whining and crying and being really loud right now, and I actually need to finish what I'm doing. But when I'm done, I'll give you all of my attention, right? And drawing that boundary and then asking for them to respect that. And that's part of social emotional learning as well. Yeah,
exactly. Well, Christina, if there's anything else that you want to leave us with, anything else you want to mention before we head off?
I mean, I have so many notes because I feel like this topic, like you can just go off in so many different angles. One thing that I didn't mention was games. Games can be really helpful. So the Common Core is great for helping them through a tantrum, but what about just teaching them in general? So we talked about books, but games are wonderful. I have 2 games by Bright Spots, and you can just get them on Amazon. One is a feelings matching game, and one is a memory game. And games in general are wonderful because they teach turn taking, and they teach kind of how to win and how to lose nicely, how to have empathy for the person that you're playing with. But then these, because of the topic, teach about the feelings. So like when we get a bingo spot, then we talk about what emotion that is and when we feel it and how it looks like. And same with the matching. So those are really, really great. Like I said, I mentioned Big Life Journal is a great resource. Generation Mindful is a great resource. The books from PCES Publishing that are my fellow authors are great. And then there's a book that I used a lot in therapy called What Should Danny Do? And that couple that makes that book come out with another one called What Should Darla Do? And it's a really cool story where you choose the ending. It gives you options of what choice you make. And then you follow the path in the book based on where to go from there. And that's another kind of fun way to teach. But like I said, I've got a million books to share about. So I'll send you the link, or like I made a Google Doc. I'll send that to you, and then you can put that out for everyone. The other thing I was going to talk about real quick was imaginative play. So using action figures or dolls or whatever your kids like to play with, and kind of reflecting on scenarios. and working through it together that way, because kids learn way quicker through play than they do from lecture.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely send me those because I would love to link them in the comments. And it's so funny because we have the book, What Should Danny, or What Would Danny Do? I can't remember exactly the title. And it's just funny because my kids, I think it's so funny when he does the bad choice or the wrong choice. They always choose that one. They think it's hilarious. So I don't know if it's exactly accomplishing what we hoped it would, but it's funny.
Hey, amusement is part of it, right? Because at least you've got their interest. They're buying on it.
Yeah, they think it's so funny. So yeah, but it's a really, really great book. We like it a lot. So Christina, why don't you tell us how we can learn more about you, follow you, and again, any social media, anything you have, I can link it in the comments as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I would love to have any of you reach out to me. I love connecting. Shoot me a private message, whatever, we'll connect. I have my website, which is currently just my therapeutic mom blog, and that is thisisreallifemama.com. However, I'm currently having it overhauled, and it will soon be ChristinaFurnival.com, so my name, and it will be a full-on website where the blog is a branch of it. So you'll still get all of my really helpful therapeutic posts, but it'll be like on a whole new thing. So I'm super excited about that. And then you can find me on Instagram. So I've got 2 accounts now, and one is This Is Real Life Mama, which again is my therapeutic motherhood, where we look at genuine motherhood and all the ups and downs, and nothing's off the table. And we look at it through the lens of therapy or what could actually be helpful. And then my second account I just made, so I have 1 post, and it's Capable Kiddos Books on Instagram. So check that out too. And I'm gonna I need to actually plan out all my content, but what I'm going to do, my thought is to talk about like social emotional learning, like we discussed today, and boundaries, and kind of give how-tos and tips, as well as share information about the book as it comes further along towards getting released. So those are my Instagrams. This is Real Life Mama and Capable Kiddos Books. And then on Facebook, I have a page called Christina Furnival Real Life Mama. So you're welcome to find me anywhere on there. And I just look forward to you guys reaching out.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. This was such a great conversation. Thank you for sharing all this great information with us.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye.